Welcome. Thanks for joining. Use the chat to communicate with everybody. Really appreciate you all making some time today. This is the community and On the Revel production. Very excited about today. This month specifically, we decided we're going to focus on women throughout the supply chain. It's Women's Month. We know that there are some OG women doing the work, and we wanted to spotlight them. So we brought them to you guys. We have cultivation today. We have manufacturing next week. We have retail the following week. So join us all month. Thank you guys. Lulu, how you doing?
I'm super excited about this month. You're right, it's Women's Month. And, we say that there's a lot of women in the cannabis space, and there is, but most of the ones that you get to see and recognize are front of the house. So that's brands, PR, marketing, all of that. And I just don't think the women along the supply chain get featured enough. They're out there pulling their sleeves up, building, growing. So I think it's really important that we showcase these awesome ladies and have them tell you their stories and see how badass they are. So turning it back to you, 𝗄𝗵𝘁.
Most def. I couldn't agree more. So I do want to shout out our DJ for getting us started. If you are joining the webinar through Zoom, you get to hear DJ O. He'll be ending tonight's session. We appreciate you. If you're on YouTube, thank you for joining. Please press the like button or subscribe if you appreciate this content. And I do want to make a special shout out to 𝗁𝗄𝗆. I got to tell you guys, in this digital landscape where we can't do events in person, to find a sponsor that really gets down with us and has a similar ethos is very impactful, and we appreciate it so much. They sponsored our last month and they enjoyed it so much they came in again. So major shout out to 𝗁𝗄𝗆. And we're going to talk about cultivation today, but some things have happened in New Jersey. And so I wanted to make sure to break off some time so we could invite a member of 𝗁𝗄𝗆, Marissa. She is going to be giving you guys a quick overview of what legalization means in New Jersey. And she's a specialist in not only their cannabis practice, but also some elements of careers and employment. So without further ado, I want to invite Marissa. Hey, how you doing today?
Hey, 𝗄𝗵𝘁. Thanks so much for the kind introduction there.
Oh, of course. It's a pleasure to have you.
Absolutely.
So yeah, if you wouldn't mind, just give our audience a little overview of what's going on in New Jersey.
Sure. So hi, everyone. My name's Marissa, and it's a pleasure to be speaking with all of you, although I wish it weren't virtual. It's a pleasure to be here. So I'm just here to give you guys a quick overview of what just happened in New Jersey over the past week and a half, 2 weeks. A lot has happened. So first and foremost, New Jersey has legalized adult use cannabis, which is great and incredible and about time. So on February 22nd, Governor Murphy signed 3 different laws. He signed the Cannabis Regulatory Enforcement Assistance and Marketplace Modernization Act, which is essentially a long way of saying adult use cannabis is now legalized, and that law provides the framework for the new adult use marketplace. Governor Murphy also signed a decriminalization bill, which decriminalized possession of up to 6 ounces of cannabis for people 21 and over in New Jersey. And he also signed what's called the cleanup bill, which addresses penalties for the underage use of cannabis. So incredible news. All these laws were passed, but what does that mean, right? So a few days later, on February 25th, Governor Murphy filled all of the seats of what's called the Cannabis Regulatory Commission. And this commission, under the new law, is charged with overseeing both the medical and the adult use marketplace in New Jersey. So this is important that the commission is now filled because the clock has started. Now the commission has 180 days from the date Murphy first signed the law, February 22nd, to establish a bunch of rules and regulations regarding the adult use marketplace. So once those rules and regulations are out, then the law says 30 days after that, the state needs to start accepting different applications for the different types of licenses for the adult use marketplace. Now, the first 24 months under the law, there are a lot of limits on the numbers of applicants or the numbers of licenses the state will give out and the types of licenses the state will give out. And a certain percentage of those new licenses are designated for micro business, which is incredible. So we have both large companies that are going to get in the game and also hopefully a lot of small micro businesses that'll get in the game as well. The commission is also going to prioritize and approve at least some of the 12 vertically integrated operators in New Jersey who right now have licenses for the medical cannabis. So the commission's going to prioritize giving them adult use licenses. And so hopefully we're thinking the timeline, probably earliest that case scenario that cannabis is actually going to legally be sold in New Jersey is the end of 2021. We're thinking more along the lines of early 2022, but you never know. Hopefully they'll get through this process quickly. And also another quick thing to note that happened in New Jersey, on February 18th, the stay has been lifted from the New Jersey Appellate Division. So there was a court order that prevented the state from considering the different types of medical operator license applicants from the 2019 cycle. The state was ordered, you can't look at the applications anymore. There may be an issue there was like a whole lawsuit that was filed, but long story short, the stay has been lifted as of February 18th. So the state is now going through those 2019 applications. So we should have more medical operators soon in New Jersey, which is great news as well. And as Jacoby noted, I'm an employment attorney. I work with companies all the time in this really highly regulated field in both New York and New Jersey. And I think there are a few big kind of employment aspects to all of these new laws that are important to note. So in the New Jersey, the new law that legalizes adult use, essentially New Jersey created a new protected class. The law says that an employer cannot make any hiring decision or take any negative action against an employee or an applicant based on their use of cannabis. So if you're a cannabis user, you're now protected under New Jersey state law, which yes, great. So, I mean, there's a lot of technicalities in this law, but essentially the law says that an employer can't take a negative action based solely on your use. So just because, for example, you get drug tested, it comes back positive for cannabis, your employer in New Jersey can't just terminate you right then and there. There has to be some other reason. Like, for example, okay, you got a positive drug test and it's pretty clear you're under the influence while you're on company property and you're supposed to be doing your work. Okay, fine. An employer can terminate you in that circumstance because the law is clear. Employers can still have substance-free workplace policies. So an employer can still legally say no cannabis allowed on the property, no one being under the influence of cannabis, alcohol, any other type of substance. So the law still is not, it's still protective of employers in certain circumstances. What is also a big deal under this law is it completely revises a lot of drug testing requirements that New Jersey employers had been using. So the law highly, highly regulates this now. And essentially in New Jersey, an employer can only drug test you in certain circumstances, which are outlined in the law. And the test has to be both scientifically reliable and a physical evaluation has to be done in connection with a test, which is brand new. So all New Jersey employers definitely need to talk to an employment attorney and get up to date with all of these requirements, but this is important for employees to know as well. So those are just really high level new things that's happening in New Jersey. And it's been a pleasure speaking with you all. Thank you. I'll hand it back to Jacoby.
Thank you so much, Marissa. Spitting the gospel. I appreciate that so much. The fact that you cannot be terminated for adult use cannabis is game-changing and groundbreaking, and I'm just excited to witness this part of life, what's going on in the world. So let's switch gears here. I'm going to invite my panelists up, Joy and Frannie, and quickly on both of these dope women. Joy is not new to the show. I guess she's new to the virtual show, but not to Revel. She's a good friend of ours, former professional basketball player in Greece, turned basketball coach, and then flipped to CEO of a cannabis company. Pretty linear career trajectory, I would say. And then, of course, we have Frannie Shulman, who has been dreaming of this grow for 60 years, which I think is really amazing to see her just bring her life, bring her dream come to true. Oh my goodness, bring her dream come to life. And I would ask both of you to show your video and come join us. What's up, ladies?
Hi.
Hello.
Hello.
Hi. How you guys doing? Joy, how are you?
I'm great. I'm happy to be with you guys again. This is, very new for me. I think the last time I saw you guys was in New York, which was a phenomenal event. So I miss those in-person things, but happy to be here and learn more about Frannie's story and connect with people.
Dope. Frannie, how are you? Where are you today?
I'm on the West Coast, but cultivating is cultivating. So regardless of where you are, it's there's a story to be told, and I'm anxious to hear Joy's story as well, her growing story.
Right on.
I'm super excited. Frannie, you're our first elder from the industry, and I'm so dope to hear and learn about your background. And yeah, I can't wait to delve into that.
Thank you.
Yeah, absolutely. There is a lot going on for inclusion of minorities and women, and you guys all know I stand behind that. But I don't think there's enough conversation about the fact that this is run by a lot of young people, and the people that came before us really paved the way. So, Frannie, we really appreciate you. Let's talk about it. Just very quickly, can you guys give me a quick introduction to yourselves and why you're in the position that you're in?
I'll give the honors to Joy, and I'll follow her.
Oh, okay. Thank you, Frannie. My name is Joy Hollingsworth. I'm from Seattle, Washington. Born and raised here, like Jacoby mentioned, have played overseas in Greece. I was on a plane 30 miles high in the air, and I remember, I'm gonna date myself, I'm sitting with a ginger ale in one hand and a ＳkyMall magazine in the other, and the dude next to me said, "What are you gonna do next? You're not gonna play basketball. What are you gonna do next?" And I had no idea. Floated around a little bit and kind of find my way in the industry back in 2012 or 13 when my brother decided he wanted to do a family business. And so it feels like we've been building a plane ever since we jumped off this cliff. And currently I do all the operations. So I have an official title, but I do a lot of the day-to-day operations to compliance, to marketing, branding, try to get like on the Revel with your amazing branding. So yeah, I do a little bit of everything.
Appreciate it. And how about you, Frannie?
Well, I started this, I had a lifelong dream of having a ranch, and was fortunate enough to be able to buy a small one after raising my children. And I bought the small ranch. I grew apples and gourds and vegetables and loved the life, and got very involved in agriculture, organic agriculture. And someone wanted to buy my place, and I needed another place to find. So I got on my Harley that I learned to ride when I was 61, and came down this beautiful road, found a beautiful ranch that was for sale, and knocked on the door. There were no improvements on the ranch. I knew I wanted to grow cannabis, so I made the guy an offer, and our ranch is now 1,100 acres, and we're growing cannabis. We have a brand, we have a nursery, and we're following all the legal rules.
Right on. Your audio is coming in a little bit fuzzy. At the end, it was great. So if it stays like that, I think we're all right.
All right.
Oh, whatever you just did, that was it. Do that.
Thank you. I did
All right.
it.
All right.
Perfect. Perfect.
And I also just want to say that our dogs are matching. That looks just like my dog. She's knocked out right here. But I didn't notice that we had matching dogs. Anyways, back to cultivation. Frannie, one piece that I think I thought was really interesting about your story is you actually sold your past company that had nothing to do with cannabis, flipped that, and now and had enough to start the ranch. I thought that was really awesome. And I think it just shows like the ingenuity and the creatives that come into this space with new ways to tackle cannabis cultivation.
Well, and the only way anyone can cultivate cannabis is marching strong forward, because it's a difficult business to get into.
That's
I think
facts.
Joy would agree. Huh?
And I mean, honestly, that is why we brought you guys here, because we have a lot of people with lofty pie in the sky dreams of what growing will be like. And I hope all of them are successful, but I'm hoping you guys are going to spit the truth here. Okay. So my first section here, I want to understand what was going on before you got your license. Okay. You have an idea, you have a vision, you might have just found your property. I have a couple questions here. First, how did you get from an idea to an application for a license? Can you walk me through that, Joy?
Absolutely. So at the time we were growing in my grandmother's basement. So we had like 10 plants, and the market before I-502, which is the legal market in Washington State, was medical. And so there were more medical dispensaries than there were Starbucks, all in Seattle, scattered around. So you could find, it was really undercover. It was a gray area in Seattle. And my brother at the time was selling to dispensaries, medical cannabis. And so we had this idea. 2012 hit, Barack Obama got reelected, and legalization of gay marriage in Washington State and 502 passed. At that time, we sat down as a family, and my brother brought us this idea on a PowerPoint. At the time, it went from a PowerPoint to finding a property on Craigslist that we bought, to buying the land. And we bought the land before we even were licensed in Washington State, because you have to take some type of a risk. And we thought, well, if we're not going to be in the industry, if it didn't work out, we'd have a piece of land somewhere, right? And so we bought 6 acres, and right now we have 30,000 square feet of cultivation, farming and greenhouses. But it was like a step by step, right? So it was like you had an idea, you put it, even if, people have business plans and stuff, just writing something down. I remember I connected with someone, they wrote their whole business plan on a cocktail napkin, and now she launched a phenomenal product, and she has a cannabis drink. And so it's like, you got to start with something written down. And then after that, it was like one thing led to another. We knew we had this big dream we wanted to do, but we had to have like little wins and goals in terms of to get a licensing. And that entailed, researching. We learned a lot of stuff on YouTube. Farming, like I'm pretty sure Frannie will say farming and growing are 2 different things. They're really, really different things. One's a smaller scale, another one, farming, is a larger scale, even in these large warehouses and so forth. So it was definitely a step in a process, and we had little wins along the way, but we tried to stay organized, and then we try to not let roadblocks just be the end of everything. It was like you just had to constantly navigate and do something every day to get your business going.
That's great. How about you, Frannie?
Well, Joy's story sounds a lot like ours, but just a little different. And I found the property and decided to grow here, and immediately ran into obstacles. The person I bought the property from didn't want me to put a well on his property and made me dig 10 feet down around the property just to make it difficult for me, which we did, and I fulfilled everything there. And we have kind of a similar story, but we were growing under the medical aspect of California. And but it was terrifying because there were times we thought we'd be raided. One time we saw helicopters fly over, and probably 75 people that were working for us scattered, and I was left alone to deal with everything. It turned out they were looking for somebody across the street that had a warrant out, but to us it was terrifying. And in the beginning, we were taking 5 steps forward and 10 steps backwards. So it really is just perseverance. And Joy is absolutely right. Agriculture is a lot different than growing cannabis and growing cannabis legally. And there are a lot of things you have to learn about that.
Yo, you were way too casual about the fact that you guys had to dig a well and then go around somebody else's property. That's crazy.
I actually, we brought our water up a mountain through rocks. It's a very exciting story. We brought it up 10,358 feet from the well site, straight up a mountain. And we actually, our brand is 𝗵𝘃𝗍 Elevation 1680. So
that's crazy. That is wild.
It's crazy.
That is
wild. I was a woman with a mission.
Props to you.
And Frannie, I heard that you didn't have any like electricity, so everything that you guys needed to grow, you kind of like Joy was saying, you're building the plane as you're going.
That's exactly what it was. We had to use generators in the beginning. With Joy probably understands, as soon as it became legal, the county came in and you could not use generators. They made you pull them. So we were lucky enough that 8 years ago, I had the wherewithal to get on the queue for PG&E with an upgrade. And 7 years later, because we upgraded a year ago to have enough electricity for our greenhouses, we were able to do it, and we financially were able to do it. So
make friends with your utilities people and make sure that you pre-plan all of these things that are related to water, electricity, gas, waste, all of those things.
Everything. And you have to be kind and friendly and do your best to get people to help you, especially when you're low on funds, because everything related to cannabis is very, very expensive.
And also friendly with your neighbors as much as possible.
And friendly, absolutely. I don't have that problem in particular because we're on an 1,100 acre property and our fields are on the mountains at high elevations. So we don't have some of the typical problems you'd have if you were on a small parcel with neighbors.
So how did you guys get your applications in? Did you work with a lawyer? Did you work the group? Did you guys do it yourselves? Can you walk us through some of that process?
Would you like Joy to go first or me?
Go ahead, Frannie.
Well, before 2016 in California, they passed a law that said if you were growing before 16, you could be in the running for getting legal permits through the county, kind of what Marissa was talking about. And it took a lot of guts for the people who signed up that they were growing illegally, say it out loud. But we did, and through a lawyer, you need a good lawyer, you need a good land use permit person if you're in that type of area. We ended up needing soil people, engineers, biologists. It's really quite an ordeal that that you're put through, but one that you can overcome and do. I want to be positive and say it's doable.
Oh yeah, absolutely. We were able to fill out the application ourselves. It was pretty tedious. You had to read a lot of information and then regurgitate it back to the state that you understood what those laws and provisions were. But I think probably the biggest hurdle was, like Frannie said, was developing the land. So we only had to dig 60 feet for our well. The only difference is we're on the 𝗵𝘃𝗃𝗁𝗃 Cascade. So a lot of what we're digging down are these big, massive boulders. So it took us a while to actually dig down to those wells, and which was a lot. And then we don't have phase 3 power. We're out somewhere in the middle of nowhere. And so we had to pull power source, from, we were on generators, and then we got upgraded. And so we pulled, power from the PUD power source that's here in Washington State. And a fun fact is the weather always knocks out the power on our grid, but we're in the same grid as the prison grid. So our power always comes on really, really fast. Right? And then just super fast. And then the other thing too, and I know Frannie probably knows this, you got to be friends with local government. If one thing that can shut you down first is local government, and especially if you're in a small town and your neighbor is the fire chief, and then across the way is the city council, next to you, they'll shut you down fast. And so, we were really particular about making sure that we were nice to the clerks, nice to the council, connected with them, make sure we were doing all the stuff within the laws, and made sure that the land that we were on, would entail this. And then we made friends and nice with our neighbors. Our neighbors were concerned. The biggest concern about our neighbors had nothing to do with cannabis, was that we were going to drain their water table. They didn't want us to take all their water to water our plants. And that's when we, dug a French well, and we recycle more water to our aquifer than we take, with these things on our greenhouses. And then we have this watering system and whatnot. But that was the one thing. Most of our neighbors around here, they smoke cannabis, but they were just concerned about the water table, which was pretty amazing, and made you think about, other stuff that people think about, especially when they're, living in a certain area. So that the application part was cumbersome, but also the development of the land was a lot.
Yeah, who would have thunk the water tables? And one question that people keep talking about, especially on the East Coast, is how did you fund this? Did you take partners? Did you get investment? What type of investment? What are some things that people should be aware of if they do take investment? Could you expand a little bit about that, Joy? And I'll get back to you, Frannie.
Yeah, absolutely. We pried my dad's retirement from his hands and begged him. We know not everyone has that opportunity, but he took a risk in his kids. And so we took, and I'm really open about this, we took $110,000 and just kept parlaying that every single year. Our farm now, has a, way more investment than that seed money of 110. It has a lot of sweat equity, has a lot of, breakups on that farm and a lot of fights on that farm. There's a lot of investment on there, but so we took that money and we continue to reinvestment. So every time we had a harvest, we take that money and then reinvest it, take that money and reinvest it. I remember one year we wanted to expand for more greenhouses, and we had some people fly out from the East Coast, and they wanted to, invest in the farm and whatnot. And I remember the lady was a hard loan, and she was like, well, we can buy the land from you guys, and then you lease it back to us, or we'll lease it back to you guys, and at a 17 to 20% interest rate. And so, we were like, okay, thank you for your time, bye. And we didn't even invite her out. She was just like, hey, this is what we're thinking about proposing to you guys for extra capital. And so there's a lot of loans out there, hard loans. There's a lot of, sorry, I'm pushing my dog away right now. There's a lot of, predatory lending and so forth. So, you know, but we did take my dad's initial investment money.
Predatory loans. Beware of all of those things and do your due diligence. Frannie, what about you? How did you guys fund?
The first year after I purchased this, I met someone through my son who was a dispensary owner, and he was going to come in and grow. And unfortunately, months after he came in, he died of a massive heart attack. July 4th, 2016, I believe, maybe 15, and left me with my mouth open, not knowing what I was going to do. And like Joy, my family came in to my rescue, and financially, everybody pitched in, and we managed to get a grow out that year. And I just wasn't going to let that stop me. Managed to make just enough to pay the bills, pay the employees. I sold my Harley, slept in my car, did everything I needed to do to get to the next step. And along the way, I've met many a shady character, both small time operators as well as an operator that Joy was, an operator like Joy was talking about. And in the end, I got taken a couple of times, I'm sad to say, but definitely taken, but I didn't let them break my spirit. So to all the women out there and all the growers, man or woman, don't let things stand in your way.
And I think that's why perhaps your brand is called Ethical Cannabis.
That is exactly why we're called Ethical Cannabis, because we've seen it all. It's kind of, you know, you're dealing with a group of people who have been dealing with cannabis underground for years and years and years. And it's very hard for a lot of people to go from illegal to legal because it's a difficult process. So I got caught up in that. And there's also people out there who want to get rich very quick. And there is no such thing in this business. People throw out numbers like, you know, you're going to become a millionaire overnight. And that is not the reality.
And how did you build your brand Ethical Cannabis? Were you guys thinking of the name beforehand? Did you start working with an agency? Was this something your family designed? It's a very beautiful brand, and yeah, I'd love to learn more about that.
Well, thank you. It is a labor of love, and we came up with the name together because we were, you know, really unhappy with all the situation, and we wanted to grow. We do grow ethically. We are ethical, and we thought it was a perfect name for us. So after we decided on our name, we had a couple of drawings drawn up, and from there we ended up going to a designer or an ad agency, and they came up with a more refined drawing for us. And from there, our family and our partner creatively came up with our brand design.
Beautiful. And Joy, you guys family owned and operated as well, the Hollingsworth Cannabis Company, THC appropriate for all of your social media. How did you guys work all of that out?
We were trying to think of, my brother was trying to be a narcissist and name all this stuff after him. So, you know, he thought, let's just name it our last names. But I think the biggest thing was like, we wanted people to know that it was a family operation, last name, and that, you know, we were prideful about what we, when we give our cannabis, you know, like when we're selling our cannabis and people are trying it, that we wouldn't give anything that was like low quality because it has our last name on it, and nothing that, you know, my mom wouldn't smoke herself, right? Like this was like, hey, we smoke this ourselves. This is our last name, and prideful about that. And then I think the acronym, the Hollingsworth Cannabis Company, just came up randomly while we had a smoke sesh. And, you know, we were like, oh, that's, you know, where most of things happen, right? Where creativity connects, was that piece. So that was the branding behind that.
And how much would you say would be a typical, you know, brand project that you would spend as a client?
Say that one more time, it cut in and out.
So if when you're doing your brand, working with a designer for both of you ladies, what would you say is an average cost if you went out and, you know, had a designer come in and refine something for you?
Like a logo or a, you know, like a label or something like that.
Your logo, your...
Yeah, no, I mean, you know, we had bids for like a logo and a branding piece, you know, as low as like $500 to someone to, you know, $3,000 just to recreate the brand in terms of just the logo in general. The thing is that when we first started, and you know, there was a lot of, we're constantly changing our label. And so we were constantly have to spend money on labeling, and, you know, there was new laws coming out where you had to have this on your package, and you have to have, you know, above 21 and all these different things. You were constantly changing your label. Finally, I said, you know what, I'm gonna learn how to do Adobe myself. I'm gonna figure it out. And I'm gonna learn how to do a website and just figure it out. And so, because we were constantly changing stuff. And so we kind of just take pride on kind of doing a lot of the design work ourselves for stuff, but we do have people do our videos, you know, and kind of create that branding for us as well, which, you know, can be pretty expensive, but very, very well worth it.
What about you, Frannie?
I would say we were in about the same ballpark, and we had the same issues. We constantly were changing it. And one of my sons learned how to use the same program and was able to save us a lot of money. But I'd say, you know, conservatively 5,000 to 10,000. You could go to 100,000 if you wanted to, but you can do it, a lot of it yourself if you're creative. And if you're growing weed, you're probably creative.
Definitely. I think you could easily get to 100,000 in New York if you went to an agency. And
I'm sure.
I just knew that the Hollingsworth Company acronym came over a J. I just knew it, knowing you guys enough. So, all right, we're going to wrap this session up. Extremely informative, seriously. So I got a couple notes of my own here. Get your PowerPoint written out, do your research, figure out your utilities. Your utilities are clutch. This is not an easy game. So you need to have grit and perseverance, but also being friendly to all these other people and watching out for the snakes in the grass. You need to get your lawyer, your land use people, your soil people. You need to prepare to get experts. And it's not lost on me. You absolutely need to buddy up with local government. So I appreciate that. We're going to switch topics now. Okay. So we just went with the mindset of how do we get the license? I'm going to change topics. This next session is now I have the license. What do the next 60 days look like? Right? A lot of times we just think about getting the license. Now we actually have to run this thing. Okay. So the first 60 days, what are a couple things that you wish somebody would have told you? Joy, let's go with you.
Yeah, so we got licensed actually around Independence Day. So July 4th weekend, we got licensed. And after you got licensed, the state of Washington gives you 15 days to get your plants in the ground. They don't care where they come from. They just said, hey, get your plants in the ground. You know, they didn't care. So it was a great area, a great window. And we had to get our plants in the ground and really like start growing, right? And at the time we grew in ground. We didn't grow in pots, right? And we thought, okay, well, this is, the only way that we knew how to grow. You grow in ground. And so we had to dig holes. We had to put different type of soil, because remember I told you the soil that we had on our land was not actually like really good. It was a lot of boulders. So we had to dig different holes and so forth. And, it was a lot of learning. It was a lot of trial and error. And so when I go back to those first 60 days, I wish someone had told us to just be a little bit more prepared. So I wish we had done a little bit more research about maybe we should have grown in pots. Now we grow in pots, but growing about in pots, thinking about how to scale on a large scale. We went from growing in a basement to now having, 10,000 plants. And so going from 10 plants to 10,000 plants is two different things. The nutrients you use for 10 plants isn't going to work for 10,000 plants. So I wish someone had told us, think about scaling on a large scale. Also think about just being a little bit more prepared for the process. And then also, I really wish somebody had told us, instead of thinking about growing, thinking about farming and agriculture. So we were looking at videos and techniques that, how do you grow the best plant, when farming has been around for decades, since the beginning of time, and no one's reinventing the wheel. And so we started looking on farming videos, and that's when it clicked to us. So I wish we had taken a perspective of actually farming and not thinking like, okay, we're just growing 10 plants on a massive scale. That would have saved us a lot of time, a lot of headaches, and a lot of fights.
And Frannie, you've kind of had a leg up on everybody, because your previous business was actually agriculture and farming.
That is correct. I was well aware of most things relating to agriculture, and will agree with everything that Joy said. But and we were growing on a large scale here pre licensing in our county. So we weren't quite as surprised about what we needed to do, but it really falls into three different categories after you're licensed. It's agriculture, it's cannabis growing, legal cannabis growing, and the business aspect. The business aspect to me was the hardest, because I'm someone who likes to grow, but once you're legal, there are tremendous things. You've got to, do all your book work. You've got to do all the legal things that go along with it. So there's money, there's sales that have to be accounted for and written down. There are people you have to meet to be able to sell your product and have a good relationship with them. Once the cannabis plant is legal, they test practically every bag of bud that you put out for sale, and you can no longer use any of the even organic pesticides and etc. Because they are outlawed, and when things are tested, nothing can show up. As well as Joy said, the farming and the roads to get to the cannabis areas on our property, keeping the water. We've got, I said before, 10,000 or more feet of pipe, not constantly breaking, but occasionally breaking. There are animals that we deal with. So it's kind of the ABCs of being legal. Legal cannabis, the business aspect, and the agriculture itself, and the farming.
How did you guys choose your strains? New York is very particular with specific strains that we have. New York Sour Diesel, ocean grown OGs on the West Coast. So how did you guys pick the strains? Did you start with 100 during that kind of, gray area, and then narrow it down based on how your climate was? Or were there certain things that you specifically knew that you wanted?
And where'd you get them?
Well, we try to grow the best strains we can on our ranch. And when we first started, we would just drive wherever needed to buy clones, just because we didn't have the facility to have our own nursery. We now are a licensed nursery. So not only do we start our own strains or, start them from seed, but we sell limited amounts of our genetics. So we just have great guys who look for the seeds, specific genetic seeds, and we do everything on our own now.
Yeah, we started out like Frannie, we wanted to grow the best cannabis possible. The thing is that, what we realized is that what we grow out in Washington State might be way different climate, obviously, that happens in Southern Oregon or California. So those strains might be a little bit different than what we grow out here in Washington in a greenhouse that someone might grow in a warehouse downtown Seattle. Like, there's just so much different variables that comes with growing. And so we first started out with 60 strains. I didn't know what we were thinking. We started out with 60 strains. And then every year we continue to pare those down because we figured out, okay, what yielded the most? What's the best type of bud? Washington State's business model is very different than other states because we're the only state where you can't be vertically integrated. So business models here, you can't sell direct to consumer. It's more about mass production. It's more about, quantity. Right. And so we had to figure out what the best buds were, obviously that smoked well, but also grew well, that also yielded well, because we had to make sure that when we did our cultivation, that it was, we were getting the most out of our time, obviously on the farm in that short window that we can grow on the peninsula, which is from March through Croptober and October. So those were the two variables.
And then how are you growing? Are you indoor, outdoor, hybrid, greenhouse? How did you make that decision?
We couldn't afford to go indoor. Indoor is very expensive, obviously, because a lot of things that you have to, I apologize, my dog, a lot of things that you have to do in terms of light, electricity bill. I know guys that have more electricity bills than my rent. And I'm like, not even my rent, but just like my, mortgage or anything. I'm like, this is crazy to me. Right. But we decided to grow greenhouse, a couple things. We're in Washington State. It's very, very environmental friendly here. We have a governor who ran his entire presidential campaign on climate control, right? And trying to figure out what that looks like. So we knew we wanted to grow in greenhouses. We wanted to utilize the best resource known to man, the sun. And then also, wanting to make sure that we just had a low carbon footprint. That was really, really important to us. And I think growing in greenhouses, I've seen Frannie's, they're phenomenal. Growing in greenhouse, I think, is like one of the best ways to grow cannabis. And no knock on our indoor friends, but I think we're right where we need to be.
What about you, Frannie? How did you guys decide, and what method are you growing?
Well, we now are down to about 20 strains that grow well in our area and in specific areas on our ranch. We use both. We have 4 large light depth greenhouses where we grow continuously all year round. And we have right now 4 acres of outdoor grow. And we have generally 1 grow. We're trying for 2 grows for the outdoor because our weather might allow it. And I lost my train of thought. I'm sorry. Could you repeat the question? I can't hear.
You're on mute, Lulu.
I swear this isn't my first rodeo. So you were saying that I was asking what type of grow methods are you guys using, and you're doing both indoor, you're both doing light depth greenhouse and then doing outdoor cycles as well. Right,
with the sunshine, trying to use as much natural light as possible.
And then is there a system that you're using for tracking? I know there's, the seed to sale programs that's mandated by state for compliance, but are there other tools or software that you're using to track all of this?
Well,
Or is
in California, we're on the metric system, and it's a very complicated tagging system, but we've got a program for it and we get it done.
Joy, you guys on metric in Washington also?
Yeah, everything has to be tagged compliance wise. When the plant reaches a certain height, then you have to tag it. But we use a software called 𝗏𝗏, and it was actually invented by a guy who used to be in the industry on a producer processor side and saw how cumbersome stuff was. Sorry, they didn't pay me to say this. It's the best. We love using the software. And it, we're able to figure out what our yields are, but then we also use simple like a Excel spreadsheet form. So we're able to say, okay, this is how much we grew last year. This is what strains grew well. Because we're able to take that data from that software and then put in an Excel sheet and kind of just figure out just basics. Okay, this is what grew well. This is how many plants turned over. This is how much crop loss we did. We used to get sad about just one plant dying. Now we're just, and that's what, that's all we knew. And now you're like, it's just one plant. It's going to be okay. But, we use kind of that metrics to figure out what we're going to grow next. And we've limited it down now and it varies between 10 to 15 strains, light depth greenhouses. And we harvest from end of May. Memorial Day is like our day where we're like harvesting all the way through October. And then we're down for the count for a couple months, but we keep our moms growing to be able to have for the next year for clones. So we're constantly cloning year round, but we're really harvesting and growing from May all the way through October.
So someone on your team needs to be familiar with metric and all the rules and regulations on that. There are other software out there that kind of lay on top of that can make it easier, like the one that you mentioned. And then one last thing I wanted to ask, how did you set up your security, and what are the necessary things that are required for security?
Yeah, state requires the state requires you to have, it doesn't have like a minimum of cameras. They just require every like corner of your property to have some type of camera on it to be able to videotape it, and you have to have it for at least 45 days. And so the state at any point in time can come on your property, rewind back 45 days, and just kind of just view your footage. And so we have over about 60 cameras on site. And then we also have a huge fence, like a fence with barbed wire on the top. We were getting pizza delivered one time, and the guy asked, was it like Jurassic Park? That's what it reminded him, because we have the gates, like the, car gate and everything. So it's, you can't really see what's going on behind those doors. We just wanted a little bit of privacy. And it's because, we do have neighbors that are close by. So we wanted to make sure that we were protected that way. And we are able to look at our property at any point in time, the cameras on our phone, no matter where we are.
Frannie, you have 1,100 acres. How are you guys even managing or handling that?
Well, luckily for us, most of it goes up, and we probably only have about a mile and a half on the road as far as and we are fenced all around. We basically have the same setup as Joy. We've got cameras where they can come in and check, what's been going on. And they pretty much cover all of our lower area. On the rest of our mountain, we, thank goodness, haven't been required to have cameras.
So everyone, please make sure to allocate enough money for storage space of those 45 days of video that are high def required.
I forgot one thing, Lulu. I forgot we have about 15 dogs on our property.
Oh.
And that works. It
That will
really
do it.
works.
That'll do it.
I can't help but notice this is the dog panel. Everybody here has had a dog like poke their head in and say what's up. So security tip. All right, we're gonna jump to our next session. On this last one, we talked about the first 60 days. So we thank you. I got some notes here on like figuring out your growing mediums, dialing in your nutrients. And there's a big difference between a small grow and scaling to agriculture. You got to figure out how you're going to get your books right. 280E is no joke. We're not going to get into that right now. That'll be a completely different panel, but figure out how you're going to do your books, your security, your data servers, making sure that you are tracking every single plant, because the states do not play when it comes to that stuff. Appreciate you all dropping that on the first 60 days. I want to switch over to our last topic. You guys have now applied, you got your license. We talked about the first 60 days, but now it's time to grow your business, right? So talk to me about how you guys compete with other players in your specific markets. There's a lot of people growing and selling weed. What is your strategy and how you stand out to get the consumers?
Well, we try to grow the very best weed that we can grow and have good connections, friendly connections, and ethical connections with a lot of people. We started our brand, and it's just a matter of selling yourself, selling your product, and letting people know that each and every time they buy your product, they're going to buy the same quality product from one joint to the next, or one bag of flour, or whatever product you're producing. So you have to stand out. We're on a road with several big corporations that have 100 acres. And we're trying, and hopefully we will stand out, because we're a small family farm with very ethical, and efficacy is very, very important to us. With a lot of the big ones, they're just trying to get a product out. If it doesn't pass, the tests, it's going out anyways. We're trying to be the kind of business that we hope everyone wants to be someday. We treat our employees special, so all of our employees have been here for quite a while, and that's how we're trying to do it.
Yeah, I love what Frannie said. Trying to grow the best product every year. Talking about relationships are huge. She also said about just quality, being consistent. That's one thing I think the consumers will always love, is that you're being consistent. Family owned and operated, so being authentic, I think really goes a long way, especially with this generation of people just wanting something just authentic and real, and you can't put a price tag on that. I think the other thing too, that really plays big, because there's a lot of bigger guys. We love being the small people, the small farm. I was listening to a podcast called, I was listening to a podcast, How I Built This by 𝗏𝗏, and somebody got on there and he was like, he owned this mattress company, and he goes, a small business is a good business, and a local business could be a good business. You don't have to get caught up thinking you have to make millions of dollars. It's really about what your profit margin is, right? A lot of these companies make millions of dollars, but they don't turn a profit. That's great and all, but if you could be a small business and turn a profit, that's excellent. So that was really, really key to us, and just being, like I said, authentically who we are. And it's different. And I mentioned in Washington State, you can't be vertically integrated. So our consumer are bud tenders, because they're the ones selling the product in stores. And then our audience also are people who are buying the cannabis. So we have a lot of people. You got to push the bud tenders to sell your product. You got to educate them on how you grow it, what that looks like. It's a lot of education happening right now, to the store owners, inviting them to your farm, doing farm visits, giving the bud tenders, they like gear. And so, you got to give them some swag and educate them on your product and how you grow it, so they can feel connected to it. So when they're selling it to the consumer, the consumer comes in and they're asking the bud tenders, hey, what's good? And, you know, that's how they sell the product. So it's really about being connected on all areas.
Joy, does Washington have distributor licenses now? Is there groups that kind of sell for you, or is it still kind of like you're the brand going straight to the store and having those types of relationships?
Yeah, you're the brand going directly to the store. There's no distributor license. You can only get a producer, processor, or a retail license. You can also get a testing license, or you can get a delivery license. So there are various companies that deliver product. There are brokers as well. So people who are in between. Come on, Santana. He's just killing me right now, man. And I took him on 3 walks. And so there are people in between from a farm to the retailer, but there's no distributor license.
Frannie, California is one large state, and I'm sure you're probably working with the distributor. What are some of the things that you're looking for when you're being courted by all these distributors that are wanting to rep you?
Well, one of the most, we actually do have a distributor's license ourselves in
cool.
California. However, at this point, we've been selling to, buyers. You have to look, the most important thing is that you get paid for your product. And that can be tricky. So you have to really establish a good working, honest, trusting relationship with whoever you're selling your product to, because very few buyers come in with the cash on the spot. They always need to, they'll put a deposit down, but then they take the product and you're at the mercy of them selling it to, get your money. So,
yeah, sometimes.
Go ahead.
I'm sorry, I was going to say sometimes the bigger isn't always better, just like with the cannabis cultivators, because, distributors are carrying 50, 100 brands. And how do you get your brand out there when they're with the stores? So both of you are saying these relationships are important, and finding the people that you groove with, finding the people that are going to know you and really have that understanding of who you are and being able to rep you like a friend and family versus just numbers.
It's all legwork. It's all the people. It really is that, as Joy was saying, it's the relationships that you build with whoever you're dealing with in this business, whether it's the county, your suppliers, or your buyer.
Okay, what about marketing? Like, I know that marketing is quite tough in the cannabis industry because of a lot of rules and regulations. And both of you guys are relatively small farms compared to the big players. So how do you guys compete in marketing? Like, how do you get consumers to know about your product to buy on shelves that you don't own? You don't own those shelves.
Well, you make friends with the people who do own the shelves, and that's a good thing. And we have people, and if any of your audience would like to follow us, they can follow us on Instagram or through our website or through Twitter. But basically, it's the product you produce. That, to me, is the bottom line. You've got to produce a product that people want, that buyers come back for, that tell you this is the best flower we've smelled, we've smoked. That's the number one thing. When you're a small operator, you really have to produce a good product.
Product, and like Frannie said, it's all about relationships, product, and then pricing it accordingly. Mm-hmm. We'll go into retail stores and we'll find out where's the product placed, how much is it, who we're competing against, and what does that look like. And then also trying to run specials with that store, hoping that, and it's really up to them if they want to run a special or not, because you can't really tell people how to run their business. But having those relationships with people saying, hey, we have this strain, it can be exclusive to your store. You know, can we sell this product to you guys and you pump it out? You know, just coming up with different creative ideas like that. And then also really, really connecting with the bud tenders. I cannot express that enough up here, because those are the people that are front facing the customer, and that are kind of guiding the customer to, you know, and I'm speaking here in Washington State. I know it's different in every state, but really they're the people that are the ones kind of guiding the customer into what they kind of want. And so just connecting with them and making sure that those relationships are great, and then trying to do really good connections on our social media. We don't have a marketing person. We have Hootsuite, and we just post on there and come up with different creative ideas to post. And hey, we're going to come up with, we know people like photos a lot that are like people's faces. So we either try to post our dog often in one of the greenhouses, or we post like my grandmother. Like, we try to make it a family affair to show people like, hey, we're real. We're trying to be as transparent as possible so they can kind of get an insight to the industry. A little bit of education in there, but they can see who they're buying their cannabis from, because people want to know who they're buying their cannabis from.
I love it. I love it. I love the grittiness. I see some hands raised from the audience. Hugo, I see you. You're being patient. Nicole, you had a great question in the chat. I want you to ask that unmuted if you don't mind. But before I turn it over to the audience, quick question, or last question for both of you ladies. What's next for you? You've walked us through getting the application, getting the license. You did your first 60 days. You're talking about growth. So my final question to you guys is, what's next for your business? What's 𝗙𝗵𝘃 doing next?
Great question. We're just trying to survive and pay our taxes, you know. I know we can all talk about that. That my dog was doing that to me a little bit a while ago. Frannie's so funny. But here's where I think we see the next step for our company and our business is using our platform to try to shine light into the industry and wanting to get more women, more minorities, more people of color, more Black people in the industry. And using our platform to talk about social equity, talk about the tax dollars that are being generated from this industry, and hoping that those can be reinvested in the communities that were most harmed by the war on drugs. That's kind of like our thing. I know it's a social mission, but it's a part of who we are. We're from a community that was, you know, devastated by the war on drugs. We still live in this community. We see all the tax dollars that are being made from the plant, and we're hoping that those can be reinvested back into these communities. So we'd love to use our platform like that and to continue getting better, being more efficient in our growing technique and our model. We're really proud about that, and how, you know, how we were able to come this far, but we continue want to get better and expand the brand and try to get our costs down, our COGS, cost of goods down, to grow the cannabis.
And you, Frannie, what's next for you guys?
Oh, what's next is building out more acres of our outdoor grow. All of the things that Joy mentioned about, lowering our costs, etc., and building our brand out. We're trying to get our manufacturing license now so that we can have more products out. Right now we're able to produce pre-rolls, but we want to do all of the rest of the produce a lot of different products. So that's what's next for us.
Right on. Well, I appreciate you ladies holding it down. Badass women in the cultivation space. You guys are truly inspirational. Joy, you're a homie, so I knew a little bit about your story. Still hits every time. Frannie, this is my first time hearing it from you, and I'm blown away, so I really appreciate it. We're going to open it up to questions. We're probably just going to knock out a handful of these. We just appreciate the audience that joins in the Zoom. So without further ado, Hugo, I've seen you patiently waiting. I'm going to allow you to talk. Here you go.
Hello, everybody. You can hear me?
We got you, man. What's up?
What's up, everybody? I just wanted to say, first and foremost, very, very much so, Jacob and Lulu, thank you so much for this. I think this is like my 6th one after learning about this through the Zoom that Domingo put on. And these are amazing. I just wanted to put that out there. And also, I had a quick question. I actually had 2-part question, one for Frannie and one for Joy. Joy, I wanted to know, in Washington State, where you at, do you see a lot more people that look like you? And if you do so, and if you do, is there a lot of them, or is there a lack of? And what do you think, as a person that's already in the industry, that you can do to maybe amplify the noise that we as a minority group are trying to make in the industry? And then for Frannie, I wanted to know, as far as a person that's established, how do you go about like marketing in a social media age now without getting flagged or anything? Because as a legacy owner, it's hard for us to do it. So I could only imagine that you guys that are legal and with the paperwork, they still make it kind of hard for you guys. So what are kind of some of the things that you guys do to, I guess, pass that problem and things like that? So any one of y'all want to take that?
Yeah. So the question was, are there people in Washington State that look like me? Let me tell you, I had someone come here. They were like, Seattle's like first of all, no, there's not a lot of Black people in Washington State. I think we account for either 2 to 4% of the population, and there's only 7 million people here in the state. We're kind of like that fish at the bottom of the sea down here that you know exists, but you only see it when you ruffle up the sand, and then we just pop up and you're like, yo, I didn't know they were here. But try to get more people in the industry. What we're doing, specifically what we're working on, there was a social equity bill that passed last year in 2020 called 2870 that allows more, 51% of the store has to be owned by a minority. And that bill passed, and that work is being worked on right now. There's a cleanup bill in, I think it's in the Senate right now. I think it's 1447. I can't remember the exact number, but it allows grant monies to be given out to those people who want to start a business. But most importantly, not only does it give out grant money, it also encourages programming for more people to get into the industry, not necessarily on a retail side or starting a business side, but more so on ancillary businesses, right? So if you want to be technology, if you want to be a delivery service, maybe you want to start a website and be like 𝗵𝘃 and talk about cannabis strains.
Yeah, the nuts and bolts basically of the industry.
Exactly. All those
okay.
businesses that support it. And, that's what we want to point people to as well, besides just farming, that you don't have to get into the industry and be a farmer or a grower or a retailer or a seller. There's other ways you can participate to be in the industry. And On the Revel is a perfect example of that.
Okay. Thank you so much, Joy, for that. Right?
And as far as not getting in trouble, we put our license on everything that goes out. So that's one way we protect ourselves. And you just have to fight through it. You really just have to keep fighting. And no matter how hard you get pushed back, you got to move forward.
Okay. Thank you so much, girls. I appreciate you guys. And again, Joe, Jacoby and Lulu, love you guys. I'm here every week. Thank you so much, guys.
Hey, Hugo, we appreciate the love. We appreciate the support.
Yeah, you guys are the best. For real, for real. I trust me, in this month and a half, I promise you, and these little couple of things, I've learned so much that it gives the confidence. Trust me when I say confidence to people that have been doing this for a while, but not maybe at the level that you guys are doing it, to actually look at it and analyze, like, damn, this field is actually a possibility. This app, like, just to know that there's a possibility here. I'm sorry for being frank, but that shit is amazing. Just the possibility that it's possible. It's amazing to me. So thank you so much, guys.
Thank you, Hugo. We're doing our job right then, because this is exactly why we do this. You
definitely are.
All right. Thank you so much, Hugo. I'm going to ask Nicole to join us. Let's see here.
Hello.
Hi, Nicole.
Hi. How are you guys? First of all, I agree with Hugo. I've been on I think this is my fifth session, and it's been very informative. I am coming from Rockland County, New York, which is a suburb of Manhattan, so to speak. And I'm very interested in the cannabis industry and what's happening in New Jersey and New York and how I can get involved. And I love that this is a women's event, so to speak. It's been very informative for a legacy user and promoter. So I have a couple questions for both of you, and whoever wants to take it, please do. After you were approved for your license, where did you get your seeds to start up? And how did you identify what seeds you wanted to use?
I'll be happy to take it. It's trial and error, really, because depending upon the climate you're in, there are just a lot of variables. So you really need someone with you who is, fully educated in cannabis and in seeds and strains. So you need to have someone pretty much by your side. We go to the Hall of Flowers every year, which is a large cannabis event. And we tend to buy our seeds there. And, there's a lot of conversation. So it's really important to have someone with you that knows their strains.
Joy, do you agree? Do you have a different way that you get your seeds?
No, absolutely. It's definitely, like Frannie said, trial and error. What works, what doesn't work. Sometimes we also try stuff that we hear, in the industry. Some people might say, hey, this strain is really working well, so we'll go try to find that strain in Washington State. Stuff really sells differently in different areas of the state because of the effects of that strain in different areas, whatever a population likes and whatnot. But it really is trial and error. Like I said, we went from 60 strains, now we're down to 15 to 20, and that was all basically so on trial and error.
Gotcha. And the other question I have, because I understand how this is going to be affecting the future, are the strains limited so they don't affect the pharmaceutical industry where you live, or why are strains limited? Because I've never heard that before.
Yeah, I've never heard about strains being limited. Did you hear something that people aren't getting certain strains and whatnot?
I was just something that you guys said today, that they come in and they check your strains and this, that, and the other thing is, are they limiting it because we all know that cannabis can overtake certain pharmaceutical drugs and big corporations don't like that? That's why I'm questioning.
Well, this is what I do know. I do know there's a lot of farmers don't grow certain strains just because they don't sell well, but they might be good for medical patients, right?
Gotcha.
So a lot of home grow people grow certain strains that aren't really mainstream popular, right? That you can find in dispensaries. They probably just grow them at home for their own personal use. I know a lot of that's going on because of, certain strains just aren't popular amongst mainstream stuff, but for medical patients, they are. So I do know that.
Gotcha. We don't have mainstream here yet. We're just talking about rolling things out on the East Coast. So it's interesting to hear your take on it.
And I think, Nicole, when they were talking about the cannabis board coming in to check on things, that is just kind of compliance checks, just like the liquor control board comes in and checks in on some things, or if
Gotcha.
there's been a report of something, or somebody reports something, whether there's a contamination or illegal things, that's when they come in and do the checks. But I don't think there's been a limit on any type of strains, or there's so many strains now. So
of course.
So
awesome. Well, thank you, 𝗄𝗵𝘁. This is an awesome platform. Keep it going. It's really informative. And ladies, keep up the good work. Keep on inspiring us women who are interested in getting the field and have no idea what we're doing.
Go for it.
Much love. Appreciate you hopping in, Nicole. I'm glad
Thank
that you
you.
asked the questions. On that note, I think we're going to wrap up. I just, once again, I want to thank all of the attendees. Like Lulu said to Hugo, we literally just do it because our community needs this information. And when we get to hear that other people are getting some game from people that are our friends or people that are becoming our friends, Frannie, we've adopted you. You're one of ours now. And like that's what it's all about. We want to make sure our people are getting the information, and you can start preparing now because legalization is coming. I just also want to thank Lulu for programming all of this month. She does a lot of the behind the scenes work. And I'm super grateful. This month is all about women. And I can't thank you ladies enough for being a part of this.
Thank you very much for including us.
Yes, thank you for having us, Frannie. Amazing story. Love y'all. Thank you.
Same here. I think we're wearing the same shoes.
Have a beautiful day, everyone. And we'll see you next Thursday, 7 p.m. And we're going to talk all about